struggled with trying to align your own personal values, with your career endeavors, your urge to, make an impact, work on purpose-driven projects. So I'm sure, I definitely have gone through. I'm sure many of you. I see some of you nodding. So who better than someone leading design at a brand that lives and breathes, alignment on values and impact. So that's why we have Levon Sharrow, experienced design director at Patagonia, talking all about values-driven design. Let's have a big round of applause for Levon.
Hello. How about that popcorn smell? First, I just want to acknowledge everyone's talk so far has just really resonated with me. There's so much intelligent stuff packed in that I'm like scribbling notes down as fast as I can. So it's just amazing to be here, and it's humbling as well, because my talk isn't really going to be as groundbreaking as that. I'm going to slow it down and simplify a little bit and talk a little bit about values-driven design. Am I loud enough back there? Can everyone hear me? Quick AV check. Cool. So you're probably wondering what the F are values-driven design. I was trying to go a little bit clever with the title, because a lot of the time we talk about value and not values in design. Value, like, did we increase the metric of sales? Did we do X, Y, or Z? But rarely do we talk about why we're designers, what brought us here, and how we all connect to each other. So in a simple statement, it's reframing our influence as design leaders through ethics, values, and experiences. And that gives us opportunities to create positive impact. And when I say positive impact, I mean in society, at work, in relationships. If you are grounded in values, it's going to serve you a lot better than not having them, in my personal experience. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, very briefly. But I am doing a panel tomorrow, so I'll get a little bit deeper. But this is me. I think I was like 6 years old, 7 years old. I am just a person. I've been a designer, a creative director, a UX director, but really at the end of the day, I'm an infinitely curious feeler. Design is a medium for me. There are tools that support design, but at the end of the day, I think a lot about the people on the other side of the design decisions that I make, or the things that I observe in the world. And it's important for me to think about that in other people as well. If you have a title, I know a title is a title, but you're also a person, and I want to know who you are. I'm also going to talk a little bit about YC. Levon Sharrow, he's the founder of Patagonia. I'm not sure how many people here are familiar with Patagonia. Show of hands. Okay, I always have to ask that because sometimes I ask and nobody knows. And one thing I would urge people to do is to check out 2 books, Let My People Go Surfing and The Responsible Business. These are books based on some of the founding principles of Levon Sharrow, who founded Patagonia. Also a product designer, I would say, arguably one of the most innovative people in our lifetime. He's a business leader. He just gave away our company to the planet. And he makes bold moves and has continued to do so throughout his life and career. And so he really inspired me. And I think the thing that resonated most to me wasn't his design work or the pitons he designed or the clothing. It was how he approached problem solving. His whole thing is he has a quote around the uncurious mind is the worst thing you can have. And if you continue to hold on to that curiosity, it'll really serve you well to improve things, whether that's the planet, a business metric, a relationship, whatever it might be. Also, as important as YC, this is Val Franco. She's the original seamstress at Patagonia. She was 19 years old here. She's become a really good friend and guide of mine who still works at Patagonia, and along with Terry Lane, she runs our archive. So she has gone from being a seamstress, working on these products, to building the collective history of what Patagonia is. And she's an amazing person, and sometimes you don't hear about those people when there are these big luminaries. Initially, when Patagonia was founded, it was built on this purpose statement. Build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. There's a good story around why that purpose exists. I can't sum it up here, but look into it, it's great. I should note that they also updated our purpose statement to, we're in business to save our home planet. It's a little shorter, it's a little more succinct, but it speaks to two things. We are a business, but our purpose with that business is to improve the environment and the people living within it. So Patagonia Experience Design. This is our team. There's 4 of us, including one extra dog, who is my dog, Norm. He acts as our spiritual guide. But this is us. We're a tiny team, and a lot of that is reflected in most of Patagonia as well. Small, tight-knit teams that are on this old wooden ship that are trying to steer it in the right direction based on the conditions that are at hand. So you can imagine when I hear these companies and people speaking and they're leading teams of 300 designers or 500 designers, it kind of breaks my brain because I don't know how you get to know them, or I don't know how you get to know who they are, but it's amazing to me that there are people that possess that skill. I don't think I'm one of them. I'm a very one-on-one kind of person, so I have a really close-knit relationship with my team. I'll talk a little bit about what we work on, just to give some context, because digital experience design is, could mean a lot of things. But what I would say and sum up is, of course, we work on our website, we work on commerce problems, we work on problems that are tied to the environment or challenges that are tied to business across the spectrum with probably more stakeholders than I've ever experienced in my life of varying perspectives and personal histories. So sometimes we may have a stakeholder that is an environmental scientist. Sometimes it might be a business leader. Sometimes it might be the CEO. Or other times it's just a colleague. So when I say that, it's important that we define who we are as a team and show up pretty consistently, or at least in a way that resonates with a lot of different people. And it's not usually a design-forward conversation. It's about relationships. And so I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of a story around build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm. Because I think this is a part of the old purpose statement that really grounds our team. There's 2 statements in there that I really love. Building the best product, that's design to me. That's everything encased in doing what you can to bring something that's of quality, that resonates, and that does its job. And the other side is cause no unnecessary harm. And in the context of the original purpose, that means, try not to create more waste. Try not to create an environment or a world that you're going to regret later. And try to be mindful of the impacts of your decisions. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about a roadmap. How many people here have worked on a roadmap? How did it go for you? I heard some laughs. So I worked on a roadmap, and it was a big fat fail. I approached it as a designer would, who is obsessed with the craft of design and what is important to designers. And I overlooked the very important part of the purpose, which is cause no unnecessary harm. Who are you working with, and what are you putting in front of them? And what do they know about you? What do they assume about you? Are you just coming in as a designer and telling them, this is what we're doing? That doesn't work very well. And so there's this notion of, I overlooked the most important thing in having a positive impact on something that I was responsible for. And so I thought a lot about this idea of a relationship roadmap. And there's this pressure as leaders to bring, value to business and value to the scenario or stakeholders or what have you. And nothing that's ever represented in those plans is like, how are you going to get to know the people you're working with? How are you going to communicate where you're coming from? What do you know about them? What motivates them? What pressures they have? And what blind spots you might have that exist in their world. So to me, I dug in. It was an important part for me to become more engaged with people that I grew frustrated with. For example, a lot of people have been talking about a seat at the table. I don't belong at any seat at a table. Like I don't have a jacket to wear, and I don't have the fancy sport coat and whatever. So the way that I work through it is to show up with design and try to be as understanding and conversational as possible around this. And a lot of that is around embracing ambiguity. So a lot of times working in a business, I've heard this in another conference that I won't name, but I really love this notion that together as a team, whether you're a designer, engineer, marketing, whatever, if you're there in it together and you don't know the answers, you don't have the answers, that's okay. As long as you're all aware that you don't and you agree on that. There's a lot of feelings with the work. And sometimes I find, this might be a generalization, designers are a little more emotional than some of our counterparts. That's not true, but in my experience, we love to talk about our passions. We love to dig in. And it just seems that we talk about the design itself, but we seem hesitant about sharing our deeper personal perspective. It's pretty vulnerable, and not everybody wants to have that conversation. I remember the first time I tried doing that with someone who's more of a technical background, and I'm coming in as myself, not a very technical background, more of a human. And so I realized that I wasn't speaking the right language. I didn't really have I was coming at it from, oh, I'm okay with being vulnerable. I'm okay with sharing my perspective, but this person may not be. We hadn't gone past that barrier, and that was okay. And I think that's part of the whole thing is like, it's okay. You have to accept people where they are, and they're not going to ever just understand you blindly. And so for me, it's that going back to that embracing ambiguity, understanding where people are coming from and being okay with that. And so when I was kind of struggling through this, I was like, beyond design and the design conversation, what am I actually bringing? Like, what do people know about me? Do they think I just care about, like, button radiuses and colors and, whatever? Like, I think design has been somewhat, commoditized in our time, where, like, everything follows a very similar path. Design systems are a thing, and tokenizing design, and things like where it's leaned more heavily into the way of working, how design works in an organization. I feel like, for me personally, it's hard to continuously float through that without any grounding. And so that's when values came into place for me. Like, if I'm just coming into a conversation around what do I care about design and design this, design that, why, I don't think it's going to resonate as much. And in practice, it hasn't. And I think values are something that have also been sort of like miscommunicated or misunderstood over time, even from myself. But by definition, values are the beliefs and principles that you decide are important. They determine your priorities, they guide your decisions and the way you act towards others. I used to think of values as like family values, things that had nothing to do with me and more had to do with how could I be a better person. But really it's about what do I value? And to me, here are three for me. And I would urge people to sort of think about their own. You don't have to pick three, you can have 10. You can have as many as you want. But I'm a simple person, so curiosity is big for me. It's served me really well because if I'm not curious, I'm closed-minded. I don't want to know more. I don't want to know my blind spots. I don't want to know anything. I'm closed off. So it's important to me to be opposite of that in the design practice. The second is empathy, and this one came early in my life. My parents are just incredible people, inspired me to understand that there's more to the world than growing up in London, Ontario, and everything's easy and smooth. They were very early proponents of migrant families, including family of mine that were fleeing during wartime to have a home and have a place. And so this idea that, you do live your life, but it's important to understand on a deeper level where someone else is coming from, whether that's geographically, societally, anything. What makes them who they are? And do you understand that? Do you comprehend where they're coming from? The last is humor. I think this is the biggest one for me, actually. Like, there's a quote from George Carlin, and he's like, there's humor in every situation. The challenge is to find it. And more often than not, that's what I lean on heavily. It can get heavy and it can get intense in working relationships or, highly scaled environments that, you are all in. And I just find that sometimes when there's something that just grounds you, whether it's just laughing through it, admitting defeat, being okay with it, and being human and just enjoying yourself is extremely important. So how does that translate as design leaders? I don't have a worksheet. I don't have like a how to get there. But I have 3 simple lines. Define your values if you haven't already. Talk about your values. Like, why are they important to you? Test drive them, get to know, like, understand why you're choosing those. What is your motivation behind them? And then third, exercise your values. So that means in difficult times, you have to explain where you're coming from and why maybe an idea or an investment is too short in an idea or something like that. You want to uphold something like quality, so perhaps doing less is better, and you'll have a better outcome. Sometimes that takes courage to express that, and that courage comes from having values. I have 4 minutes left here, so I'm just going to briefly rip through this. Some of these values at play for our team, we have a few different departments that we work with. A lot of them have become accustomed to monthly share outs. And after about a year long of like building decks, explaining what UX was, how many people have done that here? I heard it's called the road show. It was, again, a fail for me because I kept trying to explain what design was. And I was sitting in one of the biggest design companies on the planet. And I thought it was ironic of how many parables there are between our product design and our UX design, but it wasn't really resonating. Like the connection wasn't being made. And so I just said to my team, no more decks, no more explainers, no more mansplaining. Just show up as designers. And who are we as designers? And how could we create a vehicle for ourselves? So we created, just brainstormed on it. I'm actually going to shout out my new designer on my team who really brought this to life. He is our chief editor of Below the Fold. And it's a quarterly digest from our experienced design team and contributors we bugged to help us bring to life. So we work with a lot of different teams. And it's not only output of this product for us, it's the collaboration and the non-work where we're able to say, hey, we had a product manager. I'm going to go back a slide. This cover illustration was done by one of our product managers, Sam Levy. So we're able to extend ourselves and do more collaborative, fun design work outside of the realm of like high pressure. It's something that we have to own and use as we have to support it ourselves. There's no one who's pushing us to do it. We definitely don't have time to do it. But as a group, we decided every quarter it was important for us to create this edition. And I'm really excited because for a highly digital team, we're going to probably do one in print, and we're probably going to disperse it that way just because we're passionate about it being in people's hands, learning from us, understanding our perspectives. So it acts as a Trojan horse for our team to share those diverse personal perspectives beyond the output of work. It's just one of those things where our values can show up not in a deck explaining design, but being designers who care about things, who care about relationships, who have passions outside of delivering design work. Last thing I'm going to hit on, and I have a minute and a half, is UX. And I know that's something that I could talk on forever and ever, and I would love to, like personally one-on-one. But for me, UX is truly the user experience of humans coming together to have experiences. And so this photo was from around the time of that founding purpose statement. This is a group of the founders of Patagonia. And the caption reads, "Thanksgiving feast at the Tuttle Creek Ashram in the Sierras, outside Lone Pine. All the fare was backpacked in, including turkeys and bottles of wine." And this is something, that photo hangs up in certain walls, or you come across it. And it's this constant reminder, there's Val in the top right corner, that these are the people that decided to go and trek together, decided to have an experience together. And so I think about that with our small teams and the time we take together and outside of work, learning and experiencing on our own dime or with budget as we can secure it. It's important for us to have these out-of-work experiences that are grounding. And so here's my own caption. A wily group of designers with dogs in tow in search of the Tuttle Creek Ashram in the Sierras outside Lone Pine. We found it, And I don't have a photo here because I couldn't get the same photo, but it was pretty wild. And I was just so glad that, you know, for a group of people that talk day in and day out and day in day out about design, we didn't talk about design that weekend. We talked a lot about just trying to find this ashram, trying to have an adventure, and who we were as people. There it is. We found it. It's pretty wild. It's up in the mountains. You can find it. It's an abandoned building. That's the end. So thank you.
Thank you so much.